They'll play the victim role when it's advantageous for them to play the victim role. So if you have caught them in some wrongdoing, one of the infantile responses to being caught out is to pretend that you are the victim of what is happening, to garner people's sympathy, to garner their compassion, so that they won't punish you as harshly for the terrible things you've done. Because some psychopathic people know full well that the positive intent of the majority of human beings around them will win them over. And it becomes a tactic.
We just heard narcissistic abuse recovery coach Richard Grannon talk about the tendency that derpers, that is, narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths have to abuse others and then play the victim to avoid the consequences of their bad behaviors. That's a reflection of what else? Their chronic dishonesty and extreme manipulativeness. And what derpers are likely to do when someone calls them out for their false victimhood, because they are so infantile that it makes them predictable, is to then try to muddy the waters by proclaiming that the person who's pointing out the terrible things they do is actually the narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath. They may even bring in a mental health professional who analyzes the fiction provided by the smear campaign to put his or her delusional stamp of approval on the goings-on. I have some very important and secret propaganda that I would like to provide you that I will later have to run from if it ever sees the light of day. Last time I heard of a mental health professional supporting a smear campaign, they had their license suspended for 3 years. Specifically what happened with Dr. Lauren Nicole Zenuto. Well, in any case, I hope that person is behaving professionally and ethically, because when a smear campaign is going on, the last thing anyone needs is another useful idiot. So how do the rest of us tell the real victim apart from the fake victim? Are we forever doomed to say, well, that side said this, but the other side said that? Guess I'm going to pick the side that's biggest on virtue signaling. Or is there a little something known as critical thinking? That brings us to today's topic. Tell the difference between the fake victim or Wizard of Oz-led pawn from the real victim. 5 big clues. Number 1, the false victims or pawns have become famous for being self-proclaimed victims. The real victim is not a fame-monger. Let's listen to licensed clinical psychologist and professor of psychology in multiple universities, world-renowned Dr. Sam Vaknin.
Many of them pose as codependents, as victims of narcissistic abuse, as victims of generalized abuse, as post-traumatic people in the throes of post-trauma. Many of them go online and kind of merchandise their victimhood. Many of them compete, so there's a phenomenon of competitive victimhood. And many of them are so convincing that this has become their identity, their badge of honor. They are the perennial, well-known, famous victims.
I need to take this online and become an ostentatious victim is the mind of a manipulator, and not the mind of the Wizard of Oz-led pawn. The Wizard of Oz-led pawn is doing this for the false narrative fantasy, and he or she will comply with whatever the narrative demands, because mentally, that person has a half a foot in reality and a half a foot in fantasy. They exist within something like an augmented reality, where they have become totally infantilized and mesmerized. Oh, it is so heroic how you're doing this. Oh, that's all the Wizard of Oz-led pawn needs to hear. But normally the Wizard of Oz-led pawn would probably not be airing things out to an online audience of strangers. This tip comes to us from a 2022 article from Medium, written by medical doctor Melissa Kalt, titled 11 Ways to Discern the Covert Narcissist Victim from the Covert Narcissist. The article is so fire that I just had to put the link in our video's description. Dr. Kalt writes, the covert narcissist wants to share things in confidence. They don't want the victim to know what they're saying. They don't want numerous witnesses to what they've said. It's very difficult to manage their massive web of lies. To which I say, managing a massive web of lies would be difficult if they didn't also loudly claim victimhood and escape into echo chambers on social media. Echo chambers are a paradise for pathological liars. That's what they crave, a safe space where fantasies can grow and spread spread free from the natural pushback that would normally come from reality. Even if you are a critical thinker, someone who'd actively denounce postmodernism for the way it creates a liar's paradise, you can still be seduced by false victims or pawns because they cry to you for safety from reality. A collapsed narcissist. That's the exploitation of your empathy and your emotions, which are pitted against your prefrontal cortex's mere intellectual understanding that echo chambers are dangerous and a menace to society. When I say these abusers engage in extreme manipulativeness, this is what I mean. Dr. Kalt continues. She says the victim is comfortable speaking openly. Victims are motivated by the truth. The third way to tell the real from the false victim is that the false victim or pawn demonstrates self-pity in a goal-oriented way. This is the most crucial point provided in this video, guys. Dr. Vaknin says this.
And especially covert narcissists pity themselves. And they pity themselves visibly, publicly, ostentatiously, conspicuously. It's a currency. Their self-pity is a manipulative ploy to pull at your heartstrings. And so the self-pity and the ostentation that goes with the self-pity, they are coupled with goal orientation. The narcissist wants something from you. If he is on YouTube, he wants your views and the advertising money. Otherwise, he wants to become a celebrity. He wants to have sex with you. He wants to take money from you. He would pose as a victim, a helpless, hapless, innocent, totally innocent victim, just to get you to do what he wants. It's manipulative. Remember, a true victim, a real victim, would never wallow in self-pity, in public at least. He would never do this. And he would never ever couple self-pity with some goal. He would never go on YouTube and pity himself. If you spot self-pity, that's a narcissist. Victims have dignity. Victims don't pity themselves. They're angry sometimes.
Dignity?
But
What's that?
self-pity is a hallmark of a narcissist. Especially a covert narcissist. They victimized me. They discarded me. They treated me harshly. I was so good to them. I gave them everything. I gave them love. I gave them money. I gave them sex. I gave them this. And they just keep victimizing me. Everyone keeps victimizing me. Poor me. Please, I'm so in need of compassion and empathy and so on and so forth. It's a manipulative technique. A narcissistic manipulative technique. Beware.
I hope you caught that. Dr. Vaknin says we should pay attention to whether a supposed victim's self-pity is goal-oriented. Real ones usually want something simple: peace, healing, and for those of us who haven't fully individuated yet, validation. Derpers, that is, narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths, on the other hand, use mobs. To get a mob-based outcome, they engage in things that are well known in the literature as red flags. Things like triangulation, abuse by proxy, and relational aggression are related to this concept of being self-pitying in a goal-oriented way. But this may also be red flags waved by the Wizard of Oz-led pawn, whom these abusers use as a human shield. What we're talking about, guys, again, is the exploitation of empathy. Boo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo. If only you could do something to make me feel better. The Wizard of Oz-led pawn, by the way, has no clue that she or he is being manipulative. The self-awareness has been taken down to a level 0 for control and manipulation purposes. Even if the Wizard of Oz-led pawn does understand that she or he is being manipulative, that moral corruption would be a function of the abnormal control that has been exercised. Or the false victims or pawns engaged in a smear campaign for years or decades, thereby confirming their psychopathy or the psychopathy of their manipulators. And this is where the many years of culty doltiness come back to bite someone who has been under the spell of a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, and then has to wake up out of that beautiful Wizard of Oz-led fantasy and come out of a deep state of derp, however briefly, to face what actually happened. I have been engaging in abusive, red flag, antisocial behaviors in a psychopathic smear campaign for more than 20 years. Well, a simple definition of a smear campaign is that it is an effort to damage someone's reputation through the manipulation of public perception. Did that happen for multiple years or in extreme circumstances for more than 20 years? Or not? Dr. Vaknin says that a smear campaign is a a form of gang stalking in which a group of people collude and collaborate to inflict harm on another person. Did that happen for multiple years, or in some extreme circumstances, for more than 20 years? Or not? Oh, boo-hoo, hoo-hoo-hoo. You know, crying doesn't change reality. In fact, it comes across as emotional blackmail and the exploitation of empathy under these circumstances. By the way, what happens if someone says, "Oh, please, don't call it a smear campaign. That is too harsh. That is not what we're doing here, and that's going to affect me if you say that." That is also emotional blackmail and the exploitation of your empathy. 5. The false victims or pawns change their story to fit the circumstances. For example, maybe your stoic response to an infantile threat from an abuser was, "have fun." But now the new lie or changed story is that you're saying "have fun" was about not allowing anyone to have fun. There is usually no noticing when a story changes within an echo chamber. That unequal footing is, oh boy. Just use your critical thinking about echo chambers if you have any left. If you're a critical thinker who normally tells others not to be a narrative humper, becoming a cult group member may make it so that you're suddenly all about the narrative humping. Now you hit that stuff on the daily, bro. So often that you've actually gained an increase in your sexual stamina. What a unique perk. The false victims or pawns, 1. Have become famous for being self-proclaimed victims. 2. Want the confidentiality of an echo chamber. 3. Demonstrate self-pity in a goal-oriented way. 4. Engaged in a smear campaign for years or decades, thereby confirming their psychopathy or the psychopathy of their manipulators. 5. Change their stories to fit the circumstances. Real ones do not do any of these stupid or manipulative things. Guys, it's the nature of evil to hide itself. It may come in the form of a mental health professional playing the role of a minister of mental health propaganda, providing the kind of superficial analysis that's based on the fiction that supports a smear campaign. Pathological liars love the superficial analysis because their lies are surface deep, rendering any analysis that does not go deeper an epic fail. It may come in the form of an echo chamber posing as a supposed safe space for victims, while actually providing a paradise for pathological liars. It may come in the form of unexamined seductive routines and rituals that keep the levels of culty doltiness high within cult group members. Pockets of personality disordered people band together and collaborate to hide from the terrible things they have done and the terrible people they are. And when the narrative becomes more important than the truth, because leaving the narrative means the loss of community and the loss of the thrilling adventures that come from being involved in a fantasy, when emotional reasoning replaces critical thinking, when people lack the understanding that confirmation bias grows secretly stronger over time, evil prevails. Dr. Kalt says that it's our responsibility to discern the real victim from the derper, that is, the narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath. That's why we created this video. We aspire to be insightful around here. If you found the information in the video to be helpful, thoughtful, or interesting, please like, share, or subscribe. We deeply appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on this video. Much love and God bless.